All right, my next one says this. My son's 18, but is now hanging out with people he should not be hanging out with, really bad influences. What do I do as a parent now that he is technically an adult? I don't want to run his life, but I don't want to see him in trouble either.
You act like a parent. It's like I didn't stop parenting. Yeah, I still haven't stopped parenting my children. And so my kids are 24 and 28, and my daughter's married. I don't get into her life a whole lot, but I'm still her dad, and I still give her godly advice. And the same thing for my son. The relationship changes. I don't want to run their lives, but on the other hand, if they were out of line in some area, I'd be having a talk with them and telling them what the consequences are going to be, and not caring if I make them mad about it. There's a passage in Galatians chapter 6 that says, "Brethren, if a man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks himself to be something when he's nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one examine his own work, and then he will have rejoicing in himself and not in another. For each one shall bear his own load." And so there's it's talking about a balance there. And so there are times when people need help. They need you to come alongside. They need you to do things with them and for them, and sometimes force the issue. And especially in the family arena. And so when I have had to do that with my children, and when I have done that, I've done it prayerfully, and I've made specific stands in situations. One of my kids was living in my house when certain things were going on, and there are things that are not allowed in my home, and so when those things happen, it's like we have a conflict at that point, and so you don't want to be afraid of conflict. But on the other hand, you want to be somebody that's being led by the Lord in those issues, because again, you can do it with a bad attitude and a wrong heart, and you can drive people directions that they wouldn't necessarily go otherwise. But I would have no problem, if I had a situation with my son and he was hanging out with the wrong people, I would have no problem having a sit down and a talk with him, and just talk to him about this, and be uncompromising about it. And that's in my case, that's something that I have done with my children from the time that they were little kids. They've always known that I was going to tell them the truth, and that there were standards, and whether they liked them or not, they were going to hear from me about those things. But then on the other hand, I'm not somebody who when they started getting older, I allowed them to make choices, and I'd warn them. There would be and when they were in my home, and they were in high school, and that kind of thing. They'd be looking to go a certain direction, and I didn't helicopter parent them. I talked to them about the choices they were making, and I would give them the information that they needed, and I would allow them to make choices. Not all the choices, because they're still dumb. They're teenagers. But I would allow them to make choices, and when they made the wrong one, I just go, you know what? That's probably not a good idea. You sure you want to do that? And then they'd be sure, they'd step out on it, and then it would blow up in their face. And many times that's a really good way to train somebody. Obviously, your kid's past that and 18 years old, and if I was talking to my 18-year-old, or now my 24-year-old, when I'm talking to him, I am talking to him as a dad to a son. But I'm, when he doesn't like the things I'm saying to him, I remind him, number one, I'm your dad, and number two, you're a man, and so would you like to be treated like a man, or would you like to be treated like somebody I don't even know? What do you want? And if he says, well, I don't want your opinion, I go, well, that's not going to happen, because you're going to get that for the rest of your life, so you can deal with it. But then on the other hand, I am careful not to run my kids. I don't run them. They get to make their decisions. They're adults. And so I treat them like adults, is basically what happens. There have been times when I have entered into my child's life and rescued them after I let them go for a while. And so when I saw that things were getting bad, I inserted myself, and I took care of things. And so I'm not gonna allow them to go so far that they're just going to destroy their life without making a deal about it. And obviously, I can't make anybody do anything. But again, it's one of those things where I've tried to allow my children to be the adults that they're supposed to be. And if rescuing needs to be done, I don't have a problem with doing that. I pray, and in all those situations, when things were going bad with my kid, I'm praying about it. I was fasting and praying for my, I fasted and prayed for my children, and just taking it before the Lord. Ask God to open up doors. Ask God to lead conversations, that kind of stuff. Just being dependent on Jesus for this stuff, but trying to do the right. What you don't want to do is look back after 2 or 3 years and go, I didn't do what I should have done because I was afraid, or I didn't do what I should have done because I thought I was going to lose them, or I didn't do. You don't want to look back with regrets either direction. I should have kept my mouth shut at that point. And that's why it's a subject of prayer. But anything that I would do for a best friend, I would obviously be doing for my children, because they're more than a best friend. They're my kid. So,
Amen.
Yeah.